Good afternoon, everybody. I want to welcome everyone to today's event. I'm Pamela Schaff. I'm the director of Keck School of Medicine's Heal and Narrative Medicine programs. I want to especially welcome our Year 1 students in the audience as this event aligns with their Health Justice and Systems of Care course. Before we begin, I'd like to open by acknowledging that USC was built on the sacred land of the Tongva Nation. We honor the Tongva and all Indigenous people, past, present, and future, and their continued survival and contributions to our society. We also honor the legacy of the African diaspora and recognize that this country would not exist without the free enslaved labor of Black people. We share these acknowledgements to pay respect to the original caretakers of this land, to raise awareness about histories that are too often erased or forgotten, and to affirm our commitment to social change. I'd like to thank Visions and Voices for the generous award that has enabled us to bring you today's event. Daria Yudakovsky, Marie Bellas, and their entire team for their support in helping us deliver our events. Thanks also to Dr. Michelle Kipke, Associate Vice President for Strategic Health Alliances at USC, for her support of today's event. I also want to thank our incredible audiovisual team, Paige Tonks, as well as Jimena Patino Perez for their outstanding work in organizing all aspects of this event. Finally, I want to thank my faculty colleagues, Julie Van Dam, Erica Wright, Ron Bennery, and Sabrina Darrington. Now I'm going to turn things over to Dr. Danica Lieberman, who is going to, as one of the HJSC course directors, to say a few words to our Year 1 students.
Good afternoon, everybody. Today's panel discussion and the Opulent Mobility exhibit downstairs in the Hoyt Gallery allows us to reimagine disability and chronic illness as opulent and powerful. Just like Pam said, my name is Danica Lieberman, and I direct the clerkship phase of the medical school's Health Justice and Systems of Care course. And we really want to situate today's session in the context of HJSC. So I know you're all first years, but in about 3 years, as rising fourth-year medical students, you'll all take the HJSC seminar. And this is a 2-week intensive dive into issues related to healthcare delivery, the injustices in our system, creative solutions to problems, and then we'll focus on populations that are affected in various ways by these problems and solutions. One day during our seminar is actually dedicated to advancing health equity and reducing disparities for patients with disabilities. So we hope that you'll remember today's speakers and the beautiful artwork on display when we all gather again during your HJSC seminar to study issues of disability justice.
Thank you, Pam. Thank you, Danica. My name is Julie Van Dam, and I'm a professor of French and Gender and Sexuality Studies at the other campus over across the 110. It's truly been a joy to work with the HEAL team on this multi-part event series focused on disability ethics, aesthetics, and activism. And I cannot thank my faculty colleagues enough for the opportunity to bring this timely and impactful series to USC. This event series poses the question, what does it mean to center disability in arts practice and aesthetics? Yesterday, we kicked off this series with a talk given by one of our panelists here today, Laura Brody, in my 100-student class on the University Park campus, Global Narratives of Illness and Disability. I've taught that class since 2012, I think. That talk, entitled Reimagining Disability Narratives Through Artistic Practice, was but an introduction to the exciting panel we have invited today to celebrate the opening of the focal event of the series, the month-long exhibition, Opulent Mobility, just downstairs. Now in its 9th year, and being shown for the first time at USC, Opulent Mobility features artists whose works actively seek to reimagine disability not as the negative correlate to good health or a normal body or even human flourishing, but instead as something radically opulent, powerful, and deeply human. As you'll see, the exhibition features a rich collection of pieces from across diverse media, including photography, painting, sculpture, mixed media, and video, to offer new models of beauty, interdependence, and care. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Laura Brody. Brody is the founder and co-curator of Opulent Mobility. An artist in her own right, Brody sculpts for the human body and its vehicles. Beginning her professional career as a costume designer and maker, working in film, TV, opera, dance, and cosplay, Brody's work has been shown at numerous galleries in and around Los Angeles and across the US. Throughout her career, Brody has been committed to art making, community learning, and social justice. She's a skilled and innovative artist, curator, and educator who reimagines disability as something to celebrate and not fear. Along with her disability arts community, she builds opportunities and starts genuine conversations about diversity, access, and inclusion, as she has done in many of my classes at UPC. This show, Opulent Mobility, has shown at CSUN, Arts Unbound, AVC Gallery, and the Los Angeles Makery, and will be at Brand Library in Glendale in spring 2025. And Laura, on to you.
Thank you. Thank you all so much, first off, for being here. For visual description purposes, I am a middle-aged white woman with brown hair in black with a stripy overtop, and sitting in the panel with 4 lovely people, well, all 4 of us, in front of big screens. I just also wanted to just start off with a statement of support for Asna Tabasan, who is the valedictorian who was denied the opportunity to talk last spring. As an American Jew, and as a real believer in the power of difficult ideas, we need to celebrate them, we need to share them, and it is crucial that we be able to criticize the actions of nations, including our own. Difficult ideas are part of why opulent mobility exists. So, that being said, let me talk you through what this is and what opulent mobility is and why I started it. This is me. This is one of my latest works, the fairy Melusine, who's about 8 feet tall. I have a tendency to do pieces, my own artwork, that's larger than life or life size. I started out getting excited by the idea of reimagining disability. It came right first when I had a former partner who had a stroke. And he was 37, I got to take him to physical therapy, and there was a little girl there who was 4 years old and an old man who was 85 doing the same therapy for the same reason. And you don't need to hit me in the head, I get it. Look, this can happen to anybody at any time for any reason. But is there a reason why most of the equipment has to look as awful as it does? Like, most of it is almost insultingly ugly. And there isn't a really good reason for it. Fast forward several years, and a lot of life changes later, a friend of mine gave me his old wheelchair to decorate, and I did it up as an Edwardian throne. This is beautiful and a failure, like a complete one, because I didn't take into account his needs as a quadriplegic, and I upholstered the back too thickly. When he got into it, he almost fell out onto the floor. Luckily, he was okay. It wasn't a real problem, but it showed me, first off, how much more I had to learn. I had asked some questions about his physical condition, but I didn't know enough. I didn't have the skills. And I thought, okay, maybe I'm not set out to do medical licensing, but I can address this through art. I know how to do that. And I can start asking people what they might want. I was also starting to build other pieces, Le Flâneur, which is based on the idea of the French philosophers slash, I don't know, people about town. And the whole idea of the flâneur is somebody who could walk along. The style in which you got there was more important than the destination. So this is built off of a walker with a parasol and gramophone horns and cow horns just to push people out the way. I got the idea of this by watching somebody trying to cross the road in a walker and having people honk at him and almost threaten to run him down. Like, no. First off, you need to be seen, you need to be wildly visible, and you need to be able to push those uppity young'uns out the way, right? But when I'm starting to try to do this artwork, I was not finding place to show it. It seemed wrong to share this work in a place where somebody in a wheelchair or walker couldn't get to it. And finding accessible spaces to show my art was incredibly challenging, especially as an emerging artist. I'm like, okay, something's going on, we need to talk about this. I also started looking up, maybe somebody else has come up with these ideas before, right? Maybe there are better designs for wheelchairs and walkers. And I found them. There are patents out there for beautiful and whimsical and delightful styles, none of which are available on the market. It's changed a little bit. But again, I'm getting really curious, and I'm like, what's going on here? Maybe this is insurance, maybe this is medical licensing, but something's not right. So, what would happen if I started to invite other people in? Because I started in theater, and I'm really a collaborative artist at heart, I wanted to work with others. And so I put out my first call for art, and figured, how hard could it be, right? Famous last words, right? This is absolutely delusional. But it's a really great way to get started. To just say, let's just start. I did this at a show, the Bell Arts Factory in Ventura. I had to bother them for a year before I even got the space. And it turned out that they were so upset, but when they were trying to build the space, about having to put in all the accessible features, that they didn't even want to talk about it until they finally got to meet with me. And they're like, okay, let's just start. Small show, maybe 7 artists. One person I had wrangled in to collaborate on a piece with me. But I then got to get the word out. And my co-curator, Anthony Tusler, reached out to me, a little late for the deadline, but to come in and see the show, which was terrific. We've been working together ever since. He's a longtime wheelchair user. He is a disability arts and disability rights activist and photographer. And I knew if I was going to do this, I needed somebody who really knew disability culture. I didn't want to presume that I had the answers. One of the other pieces that I'd made for the world of wearable art, which by the way did not get in, but this is a model, mine, Xavier Cross, who doesn't always use a wheelchair, and sometimes he just uses leg braces and canes. But I try to make sure that I'm using models who require these devices. After the 2013 show, I was trying to reach out and find other people in other places, and I was fortunate enough, right in time for the Jazzy Peacock scooter to be built, to get a space at Cal State Northridge. As sometimes everything aligns, right? It all just comes together. This was a show right in front of a huge Jack Kirby show, the comic book artist, and everything was great. It really came together. Anthony Tusler's beautiful picture of Penny Richards' steampunk wheelchair that she designed for her son Jake's wheelchair. It was just sort of a classic, how do we make this incorporated, how do we talk about disability culture? It was terrific. And then nothing. 2016, nothing happened at all. I'd put out the call for art, and because I had made all of the calls for art free up to this point, nobody who applied had submitted anything to do with disability. So I had to cancel. And then the 2016 run up to the election started. So this is the piece that I made during this time, took 2 years to create, based on Kali. And she definitely called to me to have this come out. But it also gave me the patience while I was working through my own health issues that happened at this time to really start building up Opulent Mobility for the future, starting in 2017 with a small online show and then building up. This next one was out in New Jersey with an organization called Arts Unbound at the Doris Stern Gallery, and got to visit with a lot of East Coast artists. The beauty about doing this is that I've developed a real relationship with artists over the years and started seeking them out and finding more disability art all over relating to so many different topics. It has been a glorious thing. It was Antelope Valley College in 2022, and 2023 was at the Makery, just downtown, and this is me with my piece, and the Acolytes. It's been a delight to have this grow. It's been a pleasure to work with all of the artists, and one thing that I recognized is that there are so many more opportunities to have disability art as fine art, and that we want to have that happen again and again.
Thank you so much, Laura. We are so pleased that despite being unable to join us here in person in Los Angeles, Anthony Tusler, co-curator of Opulent Mobility since 2015, is that right? Is joining us on Zoom, and this is why radical accessibility is so crucial, everyone. There are a lot of people on Zoom actually here. Anthony is a wheelchair-using writer, photographer, and community organizer who advocates for disability culture and better access to disability in the arts, public health, and technology. The founding director of the Disability Resource Center at Sonoma State and co-curator of Opulent Mobility, Tusler has helped to launch a number of nonprofits, written curricula, and taught classes on disability. He has served as coordinator of the Technology Policy Division at the World Institute on Disability, and he produced and co-curated the first major art show with disability as the subject matter, Disability and the Arts. And his photography has appeared in the Oscar-nominated documentary, Crip Camp, which I recommend to everyone if you haven't seen it yet. Anthony.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. Thank goodness for Zoom, you know, or I wouldn't be here, although I really wish I was there in person. First of all, I have to recognize Laura's incredible perception and perseverance with Opulent Mobility, and that she kind of fell into this, and like a number of really tremendous allies, looked around and said, this doesn't make any sense. For her, it was, why are these things so ugly? And it has worked. It was a wonderful recognition of how our perceptions of disability need to shift. She did a really good job of explaining what Opulent Mobility is about, and so I shan't spend much time on that. What I want to talk about is my own journey with photography and disability. And as that slide shows, about disability representation and power, I see my photography and also the art that we're disability art oftentimes as being propaganda, changing how people view disability. Because historically, this is why I put up this photo of, I'm assuming, beggars in Paris who are missing limbs and looking completely miserable. And I got a spinal cord injury. I grew up in Pasadena, by the way. I got a spinal cord injury when I was 5 years old, and I was mainstreamed, which means I went to regular schools and tried to pass as an able-bodied person. Didn't do it very successfully, but tried. And I grew up with all of the biases that our culture has around disability. So that's why I wanted to put this slide in here of, this was my fear around disability. This was my fear of who I would be and could be given slightly different circumstances. And that's part of my journey, has been to educate myself and to relearn and embrace my disability identity and disability in general. And I still to this day have to deal with my stereotypes and biases about disability. They come up, they freak me out, but if I don't act on them and am patient with myself for a few seconds, I'm able to then move on. Kind of like my racism, sexism, homophobia, et cetera, et cetera. Part of what you guys in the audience, you all, typically used to get in schools of medicine was this was how disability was viewed, was it was clinical and it was a problem to be solved. One of the biggest problems we've had as people with disabilities is that the medical profession is seen as failures. And a lot of times doctors in particular would rather not deal with this because they'd rather not deal with a failure. Much like myself, I don't like to go back to my failures. But that's evolving. I mean, we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't evolving in truly radical ways. I mean, I am seriously impressed with the work that Julie's doing, and seriously impressed just hearing that you're going to have that justice is a part of the delivery of medicine to people with disabilities, to everybody. So one of the things that I started to do was to look at my own identity as a disabled person. And this photos of me with the Coors bottle of beer and my manual wheelchair. In the early 70s, I didn't know any other disabled people. So I was trying to figure out, who am I? What does this mean? And part of it was I knew it had to mean something about power and reclaiming power. This is a time period when, oops, can we go back?
Oh, yes.
This is a time period when lots of other groups, particularly here in Northern California, particularly in Berkeley. I mean, there's the National African American Civil Rights Movement, the Chicano movement, you know, oftentimes centered in LA, the women's movement, but disability was starting to become known, but I didn't know about it at this time. So this was my conception of disability: tough, powerful, in your face, borrowing from the hypermasculinity of the Andy Warhol's factory, actually. Let's go to the next one. So in the early 70s, I started working for an alternative newspaper and started to take photographs. I grew up, my dad owned a camera store in Pasadena, and I grew up taking pictures, but I started to get serious about it in the late 60s. In the early 70s, I was a photo editor. And so I learned how to be a photojournalist. And in 1977, April 5th, there is a demonstration at the federal building in San Francisco. That's the federal building on the right there. In the background, that dome is the San Francisco City Hall. I went to this demonstration and took my camera. I'm not sure still to this day why I knew it was important to document this event, but I did. And I took this photo. I should back up just slightly. The guy with the long hair there with the "We Shall Overcome" sign using a wheelchair is Steve Diaz. And he was the first disabled person that I knew and talked to. And it turns out he was hipper and cooler than I was, and made it okay for me to identify as a disabled person. Let's go to the next slide. So here's another one taken. You can see the same City Hall and the same federal building. This is Vernon Cox, who founded the Marin Center for Independent Living, with a hand lettered sign that says sign 504. I took these photos as a photojournalist I knew this was my community, but I didn't embrace my community in the same way that I would when I started to pick up a digital camera. Let's go to the next slide. So there's a long period here. You know, the last photographs I really seriously took were in 77. And it wasn't until the 90s that digital photography got affordable enough and good enough that I was able to start taking photos. So what I started doing was documenting my love of the disability community. and the ordinariness of our lives, because those are images that you never see. You see the inspiration porn of, oh, this person overcoming, but just people doing ordinary stuff like Mallory here. Let's go to the next one. Or here's real triumph. Here's Alice Shepard. She had just finished a dance she had done at in San Francisco State, and she was just really pleased with how well she had done. That's an image that you just don't see very often about disabled people. It's a somewhat quiet moment, and it's not triumph. It's just it's a personal triumph. Let's go to the next one. And so then there's just ordinary stuff. Elijah Lardon from the Marin Center for Independent Living. Let's go to the next one. Or Lake Cowell. We were all bowling down in Petaluma, and this is an ordinary moment. This is not the kind of image that you see around disability, and I see this as propaganda. And I also see this as me overcoming my biases about not looking at people with disabilities, about not seeing the community, about not seeing how we support each other. And that's what I'm learning to do and revel in, really. So that's been the arc of my story, and I'm still continuing. Fortunately, photography is getting better, digital, and my skills are getting better. And it's just such a wonderful thing to be able to participate in something that is also radical, and I think also propaganda, which is opulent mobility. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anthony. Now we're so excited to welcome one of the artists, in fact, featured in Opulent Mobility, Patricia Fortlage. Patricia is a documentary and fine art photographer. From her core belief that if you invest in women, entire communities will be raised, Patricia has focused much of her career doing just that. From her powerful piece covering the female-led Otakarha Foundation in southern Malawi, to the stereotype-breaking, female-empowering Wonder Girl project, to a project on the often lifelong after effects of sexual assault on women, Patricia has promoted female empowerment one project at a time. And now she is sharing her own story, a story as a woman with chronic illness and disability in the US today. Patricia.
Thank you. Wow. Thanks for coming out, folks. This is great. As she said, my name is Patricia Fortlage. My day job, if you will, is a documentary photographer. I've spent the last almost 2 decades working in developing countries mostly, working mostly with medical teams and other programs on the ground there, focused on combating disease and poverty. And that's really where I learned that, yes, if you invest in women, entire communities will be raised. And that fit with who I am as a photographer, as a human, to be honest. I consider myself to be a subtle activist. So most of my work is focused on women's inequities, injustices, and about, I think it's been 18 years now, I was diagnosed with myasthenia gravis. Little did I know that autoimmune diseases were a sort of buy one, get 5 free sort of deal. So I also have myalgic encephalomyelitis, POTS, dysautonomia, and very severe osteoporosis. So as you can imagine, this made a difference in how I operated overseas. I had always traveled solo with all of my gear out in the middle of Africa, Middle East, Central America. That started to slow down as my disease progressed, and I started to do more work here in the United States, working with women's programs, sex trafficking, sexual assault, those types of things. And as my disease progressed, I I started realizing that there was a story developing there. The way that I have been treated, once people understand that I have a disability, it's very different. I am treated differently by the medical community. I've been treated differently by our communities at large. I have been spat on for parking in a disabled parking space. I've had vehicles pull into my disabled parking space with me, blocking me and giving me 2 inches from my door to their door. So they have a captured audience so that they can yell at me, get a job, you effing freeloader, you're faking it. This has not happened just one time. This is a regular occurrence to this day. I have had people in the medical community tell me I'm faking it. I sit here in front of you, I probably don't look sick to you. I don't look disabled, but I can't walk a block. I can't walk upstairs any longer. So this is my life now, and the way that I've been treated, these things keep happening to me. And I think it's similar to what Anthony was saying. I think it's just a lack of understanding. And I also think part of it is nobody wants to be here, right? Nobody wants to live with a disability. It's hard. So my mere existence is a reminder that this can happen to anybody. Before this started, not only was I lugging all of my photography gear around the middle of Africa, but I was an athlete. I was competing in snowboarding competitions. I raced, I did cycling competitions. I did centuries and double centuries. I rode my bicycle from San Francisco to LA. I jumped out of airplanes. I bungee jumped. I ran down the face of skyscrapers. So I'm an adrenaline junkie. I'm an athlete. But now all of a sudden, I'm no one. I'm treated like I don't have a brain. I'm treated like I don't have past experiences to offer. And again, I think it's a lack of understanding that we still have abilities. Maybe they're not the same abilities, but we still have something to offer. And no, we're not all downtrodden. That's the thing that I love most, I think, about Opulent Mobility is it can happen to anyone, regardless of your income, regardless of your age or where you were born. And so this current project that I have taken on as a photographer is my story. This is my chronic illness story. And I'm using images to help people understand, first and foremost, honestly, the other women who are feeling most gaslit and dismissed. We're often told it's all in your head, you don't look sick, all of the things, right? So this particular project is my attempt at showing what life is really like. Yes, there are challenges. There's one image that shows I'm using a sock tool to help, put my socks on. But we're still human, we're still contributing, and that's what I hope to show with this project, is just to give a better understanding of what life is like. I want other women with chronic illnesses to feel seen, first and foremost. We're all in this together. But I also am hoping to affect change and help you all, the medical community, our communities at large, to understand what it is that we're dealing with and how we're dealing with it, and how much we need you. I'm not expecting you to solve everything. A lot of these diseases are considered rare. Personally, I don't think they're rare. I know for a fact myasthenia gravis is not rare. However, it is rarely understood. So we need that partnership, but we don't expect you to have all of the answers. I mean, how could you? The human body is the most intricate computer system you could ever imagine, right? I'm different from you, you're different from you. The you today is different from the you tomorrow. There's this inherent variability that makes things almost impossible, right? So it's okay to not have the answers, but that's not what I'm hearing from people today. I'm hearing the, oh, that's nothing, or oh, that's in your head. It's okay to say, I don't know. When someone says, I don't know, I know that's my person. It's okay. It makes sense that we don't know. So that's something else that I'm trying to get across with this project. And hopefully we can all work together. I know my health is my responsibility, but I need all of you as the experts. So this is my invitation to understand more so that we can work together.
Much, Patricia. Last but not least, we welcome Debbie Wang, who comes to us from a different space, but one that is still very much committed to disability inclusion and artistic expression. Debbie is an OT, so occupational therapist, a clinical specialist at Rancho Los Amigos National Rehabilitation Center. As a dedicated occupational therapist with 16 years of experience, her expertise includes neurorehabilitation, spinal cord injury rehabilitation, and physical rehabilitation across acute, inpatient, outpatient, and wellness settings. In her clinical role, Debbie passionately intertwines her love of dance with rehabilitation, using it as a therapeutic tool to guide clients back towards meaningful life roles and activities. Beyond her clinical commitments, Debbie is also the founder of Limitless, a community organization showcasing the transformative power of dance, offering invaluable insights and innovations to the broader community. Thank you, Debbie.
Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Debbie, and like Julie said, I've had the privilege of being an occupational therapist for over 16 years. I know I only look like I'm 20, but... and along the way, I've also had the blessing of creating and directing this incredible dance program called Limitless since 2011. And surprisingly, in all of my experiences, both clinically and non-clinically, Limitless has been the highlight of my OT career. And it's always felt like the most OT thing I've ever done, even though I've never once documented, wrote a note, billed insurance, or anything. I didn't even clock in at my work. It was something I was doing completely on the side, unrelated to my day-to-day job. Now, many people don't fully understand what occupational therapy is, except for my little pod of OTs over there. Woo, I see you. Often when people hear the word occupation, they think of jobs or work. But for us OTs, occupation refers to the root word of to occupy. And so this can be anything that occupies your time, your energy, your space, your effort, and your heart, and brings meaning to your life. So as a therapist, I often tell my patients that my goal is to help you get back to doing things you need to do, have to do, want to do, or love to do. This can look like therapeutic exercises, self-care retraining, vision, cognition, assistive devices, learning strategies. In the past, I used to make a ton of things out of duct tape and cardboard. Now there's like 3D printing technology, and I feel old like a dinosaur because I love my duct tape and cardboard. Right? But I've had the honor of helping so many people on their journeys and transformations. And when I was a new OT, I did create this therapeutic dance program because I was actually passionate about dance, and I wanted to share that joy with others. It did start in a hospital setting, and it eventually evolved into a community dance group. The goal was pretty simple. Everybody, everywhere, all together, creating art and kind of problem solving through dance. We performed, we traveled, and shared incredible experiences together and learned and grew together. And that was the program that I created called Limitless. And like I said, for some reason, once I wasn't working, this felt like I was doing OT. I couldn't bill for it, I couldn't do anything, but I was like, there was something really powerful in just purely engaging and sharing this experience with other people. We created a space where everybody, regardless of ability and background, was fully participating and just being themselves. Hold on, I don't know why I said that. Recently, I've been reflecting on the concepts of mobility. To be honest, it's because I got asked to be a part of this panel, so I started to like opulent mobility. I looked up the definition of every word, right? But opulent, it's pretty obvious. It's transparent, out there, to be seen and present, right? Mobility, that's a little bit more of a complicated word. Most people think it means to move. But to me, and I think to a lot of people with disabilities, mobility means more than just movement. It means freedom and connection and the ability to engage, not just in an activity, but in your life and in your roles, with others, with your environment, in nature, to really be a part of it and feel it and experience, not just a passive participant, but to actually be in it. When you look up the word, I did a lot of dictionary Google, okay? So when you look up the word engage in the dictionary, it actually says to offer something and to expose to risk. And I think that's what this is really all about, this incredible exhibit, this event, all of these artists. What I was experiencing in this dance group, the reason Limitless felt like I was being more OT was because I was taking a risk as well. I wasn't just helping someone complete a task anymore. I was present. I was asking people to put themselves out there and put themselves at risk and expose themselves, and I was doing it alongside with them. We were learning and discovering and just experiencing it all together. In OT, we have this term, right? We believe in this sense of shared humanity, Ubuntu, right? It's this African word, and it's a belief that I am because we are. When we're truly engaged in something and in life, we become lost. We transcend the barriers of race, religion, background, and physical ability. It's about being really fully immersed in the moment and creating flow together through a shared experience, even if that shared experience only lasts one song. When we talk about disability and occupational therapy, we reimagine it not as a limitation, but as an integral, beautiful part of everyday life. It becomes a space for creativity, adaptation, and inclusion where everyone can thrive regardless of differences. Assistive devices are not barriers, but gateways to endless possibilities. They're tools that enable people to fully engage in life, pursue passions, and express their individuality. I have a lot of patients, when I first meet them, they tell me, I don't want to use that. I don't want to use any tools. I hate that wheelchair. I don't want that brace. I don't want to take pills. I feel confined, right? I don't want to be limited to that. And then I have some peer mentors and old patients and dancers who will tell me, I love my chair because it allows me to do things my body doesn't. It's not about overcoming disability. It's recognizing that diverse ways of living and doing are just as valuable. There's really an art to living, and we are the authors and artists of our own lives. Living with a disability doesn't make life any less meaningful, and that's what this exhibit really highlights. It looks different, but we're all pretty different. I put my left sock on before my right sock. Someone might use special tools. Someone might take insulin with breakfast, right? Or do a bladder or bowel program. I don't love the word inspirational or empowering because I think to be truly powerful and human is to be vulnerable. We're all living our lives, we're all occupying space in the world, and the potential for living is truly limitless. So I'm really grateful for this exhibition and this project, for giving us a glimpse into what it actually means to add life to days and not just days to life. I have a video. I apologize for the extremely upbeat music. They asked us to use this song, okay? So it's very after lunch, wake you up.
Yeah, this a red one. YMCMB flashing lifestyle. Sitting on this top floor. Flyer than ever. Landing on the rooftop. Let's get
Thank you so much. What a fantastic way to end. Thank you, Debbie. I didn't even ask for that. That was amazing. Please give a round of applause to everyone who could be here. Thank you so much. Happy now to open it up to questions. We have 2 mics here. If you would prefer that the mic come to you, or if you would prefer to ask a question sans mic, without a mic, then you are more than welcome to. I know we also have some people on Zoom. If anybody has any Zoom questions, we are happy to discuss. We have the room for another 10 minutes about. So if anyone has a question, please raise your hand. I know I have some, so I'm happy to start. Would you tell us, actually, Debbie, on that note, tell us about the production of that video. What was that?
Yeah, so we were asked at one point by some up-and-coming artists as part of their promotion for their new song, if we could create a video to move in, which is why at the end we tried to make it, if the music plays, we all start moving regardless of who we are, right? And so we were allowed to do whatever we wanted with it, and that's what we chose to do.
That's amazing.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you. I also have a question actually for, let's see, maybe I can transition to Patricia. So I know that, you're a fine art photographer, and this is like a question that's very kind of about my interest, but I notice the lighting and the self-portraiture, especially the photo on the bed with the glass and the batteries, remind me of Cindy Sherman, famous self-portraitist, and putting herself into, if anybody doesn't know Cindy Sherman, I highly recommend you look her up. Putting herself into various persona, right? And I know that for you, this is something that is not necessarily a persona, right? This is auto portraiture. And so could you talk about some of your influences and also that shift from fine art of you holding a camera and taking a photo of someone else and then you turning the camera towards yourself, how that shift felt and how it still feels?
So I think the best way I can answer that shift question for you is I had medical providers and friends from the early years of my myasthenia gravis constantly pushing me, you've got to do a project, you've got to write a book, you've got to do these things. Well, I was so excited about that shift of going from behind the camera to in front of the camera that it took me 15 years. It was not something that I wanted to do. My happy place, obviously, is behind the camera. but I realized that there's a huge percentage of the population that really doesn't understand what it's like to have a disability. And I thought, that's so odd. We've been talking about it for millennia, right? And so that's when I realized that, okay, well, maybe pictures will help. And so I started thinking about all the different things I deal with, all the different symptoms, and I just kind of came up with a list and decided, okay, how can I portray this in a way that would help people understand what it's really like? And so I started creating sets or props that would have the picture that you mentioned with the batteries. I have a very low energy envelope at this point. I don't have much battery strength in the morning, and recharging what little I have takes a very long time. I sound like an iPhone 5, don't I? That's basic. That's going to be my next photo. But yeah, I gave in to the fact that, first of all, it was going to be my life and my story, so I was going to be in front of the camera. And then over the years, I have met thousands of other women who are dealing with the same thing that I am, and so, we all talk, and so I am trying to make sure that I'm incorporating, things from others as well, and just help to show what it's like as opposed to tell what it's like, I guess.
Thank you so much. We might have a question. Oh, yes. I would love to introduce here Rachel Ungerer. Rachel came from the Bay Area, and Rachel's painting is actually featured down in the exhibition. So thank you so much, Rachel.
It's beautiful. Go look at it.
Hi, all. I have a question. Maybe Anthony could answer, but anybody could answer. How can medical professionals be more compassionate and humane to people with disabilities? And what can be done to make sure that internalized ableism and stereotypes don't prevent doctors from actually listening to patients? Because frankly, I've never been treated worse. Like, doctors never listen to me. So, but they'll listen to an able-bodied man I bring. So how can we do better?
That question for me? I was like,
I'll take a shot at it.
Great.
Rachel, thanks for being here, or there. I think at the core of it is that what we need to do is, I've heard it called unlearning racism. I think it's unlearning the things that we have learned while growing up in this society, and to recognize them and to embrace them. It's our biases also what make us human. We have to recognize the dark side, the parts of ourselves that we're not particularly proud of. And in doing so, bringing them out into the light, so to speak, you take away their power.
Yeah, if I could add to that.
Please.
To me, it really goes back to what I said earlier. I feel like you're all under, and I don't mean to pick on you, you're here in the room, so here we go. You're all under this incredible pressure to know so much. And again, you can't. The human body, we don't have it all dialed in, but you're under this pressure to know everything, do everything, solve everything. And I've done it myself. I've put pressure on you. I come in, please help me, But the truth of the matter is you can't possibly know everything. I think what happens is there's some insecurity in that. And so instead of saying, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, or I don't know how to help you, I think we employ these other tactics. Oh, that's rare. You couldn't have that. Or, oh, that's in your head, or, oh, whatever. There's no need to do that. We patients we know you don't have all the answers. We're doing as much research as you are, to be honest, at this point. I probably know more about myasthenia gravis than most neurologists I've met. I'm a data wonk, so kind of makes sense, but it is okay to say, I don't know, or let me get you to somebody who might know, or, let's see what we can find out. Just take that pressure off. I think that would make a huge difference in the way we're treated. We wouldn't be dismissed. We could then go on to have a partnership and a conversation and see where we could get to.
Do you mind if I add on? So I think as a provider, we wear our hat, right? We are a provider, well, you guys will be doctors. I think it's important as a provider to remember that even though we have that role as a provider and an expert supposedly, we also have other roles in our lives, like I'm a mom, I'm a wife, right? And our patients have multiple roles too. Your role as just a human being with another human being, and to be a person. I think that the riskiest thing we can do is just to be our true selves, not to have the hat on as I am supposed to be the clinician, and then let people see it. I think, for our patients, we read their entire medical history and where they live, we know everything about them, and they don't know anything about us. Not saying you have to, go around and spill all your information out, but just remember that we're seeing them opulent, transparent, and remember that they don't see us. And so letting them see us is one of the most important things.
I'd also like to add one thing, is that maybe try being a little bit more okay with being uncomfortable with an idea. Do you know that they have only just started studying menstrual blood? Just now? Because people were uncomfortable with it. I mean, we're dealing with bowel movements. People are studying that, but that's the problem? Let's talk about the things that are uncomfortable. These are the ideas that actually I think are going to make more things happen. And if we can allow ourselves to be uncomfortable and be vulnerable with patients too. Speaking as somebody who's experienced some medical gaslighting myself, it would be super, super helpful to not have someone say, no, you're not experiencing what you're experiencing.
Yeah, not to chime in on my own question, but yeah, I did it on purpose. I honestly think that all medical professionals have a lot to learn from their patients, especially anyone who has a long-term illness. It's one thing to break your arm and be recovering from it, but if you've been with this for 15 years, no one's gonna know their own body better than themselves. That's true of everything. And we're not doctors, we don't know the solution, but we're gonna understand our experiences better than anyone else. And if we could have a more collaborative experience, I think that everybody's lives would be better. And then you wouldn't have such frustrated patients. People would be happy to see you. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you so much, everyone. And on that note, I encourage you to come join us in the exhibition downstairs. Check out the art, be curious, look it up. And thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.